Hi, welcome to lesson 6. I hope things are going well. I know the last lesson was um, a little different just because of the 1 week that we tried to do it in, and hopefully you did get some time to relax over spring break and at least turn your attention to something else. So lesson 6 gets us back on track with 2-week lessons, and we again are going to be talking about professional development, but in a more concrete way. We've talked a lot about what professional development looks like in the big picture, and now we're really going to focus on what does that look like for you when you are the one planning the professional development. You're going to have 2 chapters to read for this lesson, and the first chapter focuses on selection and evaluation of the resources that you will be using in professional development. It's important for you to think carefully about what it is you're going to be asking your teachers or your participants to be doing, to be interacting with. What kinds of materials is it important for them to know more about? What do they need to know about those materials and how to use them with students? Same thing with technology resources. There are so many digital resources out there now for you to use with teachers and for teachers to use with students, that we have to think about how we are going to select those and evaluate them to make sure that they are of the highest quality and they're meeting our specific needs. The second chapter that you're going to read for this lesson then looks at how will you plan and create professional development opportunities that are multidimensional. And when I hear that word multidimensional in terms of professional development, I think about all of the different ways that you can engage your participants. Does that mean that they're going to be doing some things face-to-face, some discussion? Absolutely. But it also means that they're going to be doing a variety of other things, perhaps online, perhaps in small groups. We want to think as broadly as we can about engaging our participants in as many ways as possible. Just like our students, there isn't going to be one right way that's going to work for everyone. So again, you're going to need to think about what are your goals in this professional development and how can you best meet them in a variety of different ways. The blog posts for this lesson align with those 2 chapters that you just read. I'm thinking about resources. And I think these are kind of fun blog posts to think about. One of them is, what's the top 10 list of books that every literacy leader must have or must know about? And these can be a combination of children's books and professional development resources. I actually would encourage you to include both types, because there are certain books that just we think every literacy leader should know about, and this is your opportunity to share that list with others and to explain briefly why each of those books is on your list. Secondly, the blog 10 is, what are the 10 best websites for literacy leaders? And again, this can be a combination of those that you would use with teachers or paraprofessionals, professional development participants, whoever that is for your group, and for students, working with students. So again, provide just a brief description about those, and please include the links whenever possible so we can take a peek at those. The other piece that you're going to need to be thinking about for lesson 6 is your year-long professional development plan. And all of you have completed part 1, where you did the needs assessment and then analyzed the data from that needs assessment and came up with 3 to 5 goals for professional development that would meet the needs based on what you learned about your participants. So that was part 1. Like I said, everyone's completed that. Now we're going to start thinking about part 2 and part 3. Part 2 asks you to think about, how will I meet those goals? I've set these 3 to 5 goals for professional development. What am I going to do to meet those goals? And secondly, how will I know that I've met those goals. What will your assessment be? How will you be able to look back and know that you have been successful? So for part 2, it's sort of a conceptual exercise for you to do. How will I meet them, and how will I know that I have met them? And then when you can answer those 2 big questions, that sets you up perfectly to work on part 3. Part 3 of the year-long professional development plan is actually where you roll up your sleeves, dig in, and create the plan. And there are a variety of ways that you can do this. I've put together a template for you to either use or perhaps to just think about in your planning. But what you want to do in part 3 is actually create the plan. And I encourage you to do it in a monthly format. Many of us think in that September is the start of the new school year, and kind of plan through that. And then you're going to explain the major components, what are the big ideas that are going to be a part of your year-long professional development plan that will meet those goals that you've set. You're going to need to think about who your participants are. They may be the same throughout. It may be you're working with different participants at different times. What are the resources, and what's your budget? So as the leader of the professional development, you're going to have to think about things like, if I'm buying books for these participants or other supplies, what's that going to cost? Am I going to provide lunch for them or breakfast for them, or other sorts of items that have to be purchased? Am I going to have to rent space, or is that just available in my work environment? So those might seem like trivial items, but when you go to your administrator and start planning with them, they are going to ask you these types of questions. And there is a budget for professional development, and you need to think about how you can best use that budget to maximize your efforts. So this is a screenshot of the template or the planning document I put together. And you don't have to use this, but I think it's one way for you to think about how to plan this over a year-long period. And you'll see at the top there's a place for you to put your goal, list the actual goals that you created in part 1. And then I've just broken this down by month, along the left. And then think about how much time are you planning for each of those months. And you likely won't meet every month, but are there things that will happen during each month that you can plan for? And then across the top, what are the big ideas? What's the big picture for that particular month? And then what's the specific objective? What will you accomplish during that professional development session or during that time? And make sure that those do align right back to your goals. Who will be the participants? How are you going to make the connections between what they did previously and what you're planning to have them do next? And then what is actually going to happen? What kinds of professional development activities are you going to have them engaged in? What will it actually look like? And this is where you need to make sure that you're including some research that supports the work that you're doing. The next column asks you to think about ongoing learning. What's going to happen between now and the time I see them again, or the time that we touch base again, perhaps digitally? Again, what research is supporting that work? We know that professional development, if it's just done once in a while here and there, is not especially effective. And so what are you going to do to make sure that this is sustained over time, that they're working on something and or they're working towards something? What will your assessment be? How are you going to know that your participants are indeed getting it or understanding what it is that you want them to be working on? That may be very informal throughout this process. There may be check-ins. It may be informal part of the time and then some more formal check-ins. But you do need to have a plan for how are you going to know whether or not this is successful. There's a column for recognizing accomplishments. How are you going to make sure that you're keeping people excited about this, you're keeping people on track, and that you're recognizing the work that they're doing? We know that that's important when we're working with adults. So let's plan for it. How are we going to celebrate small successes or large successes along the way. And finally, the last column is for budgeting. So you can actually use this planning tool. I've got it in Blackboard for you. Or you can select another way. I just thought it was one way for you to think about that. Once you've got the big picture in mind of what that year-long professional development plan is going to look like, you need to select one of those professional development sessions and create the plan for it. If you were going to actually carry this out with participants, what would it look like? And just for some planning parameters, I'm saying plan for 2 hours. You have a 2-hour block with your participants. What are you going to do? Again, how does that relate to the bigger picture? How is it meeting your goals? And that plan needs to be in enough detail that if you get sick the day that you're supposed to do this, I could come in and do it for you. So all the documents, processes, PowerPoints, questions, digital media, follow-up ideas, all of that needs to be in the plan. So again, any literacy leader could grab that in your absence and do a good job with it. So this is one session only of what you would, an example of how you would put together a professional development session. So the professional development year-long plan and the presentation, they are not due for this lesson. The presentation is due April 24th, and the year-long professional development plan is not due until the end of the semester, which is May 8th. But you need to start thinking about them and planning for them as you're working along now. So I just wanted to clear up a couple of things with that. Once again, I'm always thrilled to be reading your blogs, and I'm learning so much from you, and hopefully you're learning from one another. Thanks for all your work, and please don't hesitate to contact me when you have questions. Thanks.